Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Happy almost 2025. That's crazy. It does not feel like it's almost a new year, but the end of a year means another TBR. 2024 was a year that I really got into reading. Like, looking at my Goodreads, literally starting in like August, I started reading like 6 books a month, going from like reading maybe 1 book a month. That being said, I thought I would do 25 books that I want to read in 2025, my 2025 TBR, if you will. I'm sure I'll be adding to this list, but I'm definitely a mood reader, so it's subject to change, obviously, and there's more than 25 books that I want to read. Like, it was so hard trying to get just 25. Like, I literally have over 25 on my physical TBR that like I literally have, that I had to like narrow down because there's also some that I don't own yet. Without further ado, let's get into my 25 books I want to read in 2025. I'm gonna start with romance because I tried to separate them by genre, so we're gonna start with romance. The first book I want to read in 2025 is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is by no means a new book. I have just seen it all over Book Talk and I've been wanting to get to it, but I just haven't. I'm going to eat up a sports romance every single time, especially a hockey one. It's gonna do it for me every single time, and I know everyone raves about this book, and it literally came out in like 2015. Like, it's not a new thing. This is Hannah and Garrett's book in the series, and I'm pretty sure it's like a fake dating to make someone that Hannah likes jealous, and then of course they end up actually falling for each other. And I love a good fake romance to real romance pipeline, so I'm very excited to read this. This will probably be like one of my first books of the year, just because I've been eyeing it for so long, but I've just never gotten around to starting a new series because I'm already in the middle of so many series. But I will definitely be reading this in 2025. The next book that I want to read in 2025 is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I read Just for the Summer this year and I rated that book 5 stars. I love that book so much. That's the only book of Abby's that I've read, and I know it's like a trilogy, but they're kind of like standalones. Like, they're not like, you don't need to read one to read the other, you know? It's about 2 emergency room doctors, and it's kind of like they don't really like each other and they have a bunch of bad first impressions. And I think Brianna's the female main character. Her brother needs a kidney. She's also up for a big promotion. The male main character, who's also a doctor, comes into the hospital and he's also up for that promotion as well. And she's also dealing with a divorce, so she's got a lot going on in her life, so I have a feeling he's gonna kind of get in the way, you know? The male main character also left his last job because he was having relationship issues, so I think they kind of like eventually like start to lean on each other with both their issues. So very excited. I believe Abby Jimenez can do no wrong with writing. She knows how to write men, so very excited. Third book on my TBR for 2025 is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I ate up Icebreaker. That was like one of my top books of 2024, and I know people give it a lot of hate, but I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I'll eat up a sports romance every single time. This is the third in the Maple Hill series. They can be standalones, but they're also, it's like an interconnected series about the Maple Hill College. This book is about Aurora and Russ. They have a one-night stand and then they end up working at the same summer camp together as counselors. There's a no staff fraternizing rule at this camp. Obviously shit's gonna go down. Very excited to read this. And then of course I also want to read Daydream. This is the 4th book in my 2025 TBR. It's the 3rd book in the Maple Hill series. It's about Hallie and Henry. He's now the new captain of the hockey team, and Hallie is big into books, doesn't have a lot of romantic experiences. They end up agreeing to work together because he needs help with academics and she needs help with romantic experiences to get material for the novel she wants to write. So I've heard really good things. I think this is like a friends to lovers, and I heard the communication in this is amazing. I'm very excited to read this. I think 2025 is going to be the year for cowboy books for me, because the next one on my 2025 TBR is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I have yet to read an Elsie Silver book, and I've had them for like half of 2024, I would say, but I just haven't gotten around to reading them. This is about the world's hottest billionaire. He goes to a small town to open a recording studio, and then he ends up realizing he has a daughter. So now he's also a single dad, and this is a best friend's siblings book. So Rosie, who's the female main character, is his best friend's sister, and he's of course not supposed to be interested in her, so he's juggling becoming a single dad and trying not to fall in love with Rosie. I believe he offers Rosie a job when she comes back into town, and it's giving vibes that Ford, who's the male main character, is grumpy, and there's nothing I love more than a grumpy man in a book. So, and of course the next book I want to read in 2025 is another Elsie Silver. It's Flawless. It's the first one in the Chestnut Springs series. This one is about Rhett. He's a professional bull rider and he kind of has a bad reputation, so his agent puts his daughter, the agent's daughter, to kind of babysit him and make sure he cleans up his image, and of course it's forbidden because the agent doesn't want Rhett messing with his daughter. I've heard amazing things about this book, so I'm very excited for both Elsie Silver books. Like I said, 2025 is going to be the year of the cowboys for me in terms of reading. The 8th book that I want to read in 2025 is Done and Dusted. Clementine was a horseback rider and she had an accident and now she can no longer ride horses, so she's forced to move back home where she meets Luke. He is the town's bad boy. He owns the bar and he is Clementine's older brother, best friend. He's basically part of the family. Oh, I guess they didn't meet. He's known her since childhood, but he's like kind of given her shit the whole time, and now they're back in proximity, so stuff's gonna go down. Another romance book I want to read in 2025 is Collide. It's a hockey romance. I believe it's the start of another interconnected series, and I think the second one is coming out this year. Summer's the female main character. She wants to be a sports psychologist, and I believe a mistake happens with Aiden, who's the male main character, happens with his hockey team or something, and he is nominated to be like a guinea pig basically for her grad project. She just doesn't want to be around hockey players, and he's kind of like confirming that they're horrible people. I love a good sports romance. The dedication to this book is to the girls who love hockey, especially when it's written in ink. A romance series that I've been wanting to start for so long, and I hope I do it in 2025, is Magnolia Park. One, I hate that I had to get the US version of the book, but that's besides the point. I've just always seen the quote, how many loves do you get in a lifetime, and that's enough for me to want to read the series, you know? The first book is about Magnolia Parks. I'm pretty sure the whole series is about like London socialites, and BJ is the most notorious bad boy in London, and I guess they're like meant to be together. She dates other people to not get with him. He kind of just sleeps around, but I just know this book is gonna ruin me. Like I just know. Number 11 of the 25 books I want to read in 2025 is Better Than the Movies. I have seen this all over TikTok. I know the second one came out this year, I think. It's about Liz and Wes. They are neighbors and they kind of grew up being friends. He kind of just tormented her growing up. Liz's longtime crush finally moved back to town and he's friends with Wes, so she kind of wants Wes's help to get Liz on Michael's radar so he'll take her to prom. And as Wes helps her, I think they kind of develop and like realize they actually like hanging out together and being with each other and being in each other's company. So I've heard really good things about this, so I'm excited, and hopefully I get to it in 2025. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a lot of series, so I want to continue reading my series in 2025. So I want to read Saving Six. It's the 3rd book in the Boys of Tommen series. The Boys of Tommen series have, I don't think a day goes by that I don't think about it. Johnny and Shannon's story, just, if a man does not love me the way Johnny Kavanaugh loves Shannon, I don't want it. That book, like, besides the romance, that book is so heavy and like there's so many sensitive topics in it, but it's so good and like every detail is thought out, and I loved it. Like literally it put me in a book slump because it was so good and because Johnny Kavanaugh made me want a boyfriend so bad. Saving Six is about Joey, which is Shannon's older brother, and I think this book takes place like a little bit before Binding 13 started. It's about him and Effie, I think. Effie, his girlfriend in Binding and Keeping 13. It's like their story, and I believe their story is a friends to lovers, so I'm really excited to see their story because I loved her. They were amazing characters in Binding and Keeping 13, so I'm really excited to read their story. The next book I want to read in 2025 is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonin Young. I've seen this all over TikTok and I did not think it was gonna be that good, but everyone raves about it. It's about Win and Bo. They have a one-night stand and I think they both have a missing limb. I know it says Win does, but in the picture Bo has a prosthetic leg, so I'm assuming they both do. And I'm pretty sure it has a pregnancy trope, which I'm usually not a fan of, but I've heard really good things about this, so I'm excited to read it. And as I said, I'm a sucker for sports romances. The next book in books I want to read in 2025 is Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. Ariana is the female main character and her heart was just broken by her brother's best friend, but a new teammate comes along and wants to repair her. This takes place the summer before Ariana goes to college, and the male main character's name is Noah Riley. She meets him after her brother's best friend kind of rejects her and they become friends, so I think it's a friends to lovers type scenario. The last romance book that I have on my list is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. It's the 2nd book in the Windy City series. And I'm pretty sure every book is a different is based on a different sport. This book is Ryan Shay's book, who is the brother of the female main character in Mile High, which is the 1st book of the series. It's Ryan and Indy is the best friend from the 1st book, and I believe she moves into Ryan's apartment. Indy breaks up with her boyfriend. I think that happened in the 1st book, and she now has no place to live, so she moves in with Ryan, and I believe it's a fake dating trope, which I'm gonna eat up every time. The next category of books I want to read in 2025 is fantasy slash romantasy. And the first book in that category is Powerless. This book is about the elites and the ordinary. The elites have powers and the ordinaries don't, and the ordinaries are kind of banished because they don't have power. Peyton is an ordinary posing as a psychic, and she ends up saving Kai, and then she's thrown into a trial where they have to showcase their powers, and she doesn't have powers. If the trials don't kill her, Kai would have to because she doesn't have powers. I'm pretty sure this is an enemies to lovers trope. I'm pretty sure it's romantasy. I've been like staring at this on my TBR for so long, and this is the year I read it, I swear. Another book that's been on my TBR for so long, I wanted to read it in October and I've heard nothing but amazing things, is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I'm pretty sure this book is about a competition and the winner gets a single wish, and I'm pretty sure this competition is like you literally die if you don't win. And it's about Ophelia, and her mom dies and she inherits the powers, and she goes into this competition to save her sister, and the male main character in this kind of wants to help her but she doesn't know if she can trust him. And I've heard such good things about this book, and I'm not a big fantasy reader. Literally I was introduced to fantasy this year by ACOTAR, and I'm currently reading A Court of Silver Flames. But yeah, I've heard really good things about this, and again, this has been staring at me on my TBR, so I'm excited. The 17th book I want to read in 2025 is Caraval, and I think this is also, it's not like a trial, an event that happens, and I'm pretty sure this is a trilogy or a duology, but also look how pretty the cover is. It's about two sisters, Scarlett and Tella. I don't like her dad. Scarlett's dad just arranged a marriage for her, but she's always wanted to go and see Caraval, and Tella and Scarlett end up going, and Tella gets kidnapped, and this Caraval revolves around finding Tella, and whoever finds her first wins. I've also heard amazing things about this, and I don't know why I haven't read any of these because they've been calling out to me for so long. But I always get like nervous to start a new fantasy because I'm scared I won't like it. But I'm going to read these in 2025. Another super popular fantasy book that I need to read in 2025 is Fourth Wing. This book is about Violet. She goes to a college to undergo training to be a dragon rider. I think she's like very small and like isn't the typical dragon rider physique, and I don't think people like her mom. Her mom is the commanding general, so I think a lot of people at this school don't really like her, including Xaden, who is the wing leader. And I think this is an enemies to lovers trope, which I love, and I've heard like literally Xaden being one of the top book boyfriends that everyone posts about, so I know I'm excited to read this. My friend Maya on TikTok, she literally posts about this book all the time, so I trust her recommendations with my life. Another fantasy book I want to read in 2025, and number 19, is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. It's about a seemingly human thief. Her name is Saris Fane, and she's living in a kingdom. She lives in the kind of the poverty area, and it's been rationed off by the queen. Her primary goal is keeping her and her family alive, which kind of gives me ACOTAR vibes. During one of her thieving schemes, she gets thrown into the Fae Kingdom, and she's forced to become an ally with the King Fisher, which is like the leader of this thing, I'm pretty sure. Seems very interesting, and I've also heard really good things about it. I feel like whenever I read a summary of a fantasy book, it does nothing for me. I cannot understand. None of them really sound engaging, but I take everyone's word for it on TikTok, and I end up loving the book because I feel like I would not have liked ACOTAR if I had just read the summary, because I am so new to fantasy that I'm like, what does this mean? I don't want to read about dragons, but then I end up loving reading about dragons, you know? The last fantasy book on my 2025 TBR is Guild by Raven Kennedy. It's the first one in the Plated Prisoner series. So everything in this world is gold, and I think the female main character literally is made of gold. King Midas made her into gold, and kind of like because he gave her that, she has to give him his heart, and then a war comes and she doesn't think she can trust him anymore, and she's kept in a cage, and I think the cover of the book is a cage. It says the tropes are enemies to lovers and found families, which is ACOTAR, so I'm expecting good things from this book. The next category I have is thriller slash mystery books. I only have 2 books in this category because I just kind of started reading thrillers and liking them. I feel like I used to not really like them. I hope to read more than just 2 in 2025. The first one, and also number 21 out of 25 books, is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I feel like this is not a classic, but like everyone has read this and has rated it pretty well, so I feel like I just need to kind of cross it off my list, you know? Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend Saul, who then offed himself. And this happened years ago, and Pip, who is now a high school senior, kind of like re-examines the case for her senior project, I believe. And yeah, I've heard good things. I know it's made into a Netflix show, but I haven't seen the Netflix show, so I want to read this and then maybe I'll watch the show. And the last book in this category is Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I have never read a Frida McFadden book, but this one had really high ratings, so I ordered it on like Prime Day a couple months ago, and I still haven't read it, but I really want to get into her books because I've heard such good things about her books and her writing. So I just put this one on my TBR just because it'll be a good introduction to her writing. It's about Trisha and Ethan. They're newlyweds and they are searching for their house, and I think they found it. There's a house where Dr. Adrienne Hale lived and she mysteriously disappeared, and I think they get stuck there in a storm and they find a bunch of Dr. Adrienne's cases like on cassettes, and they kind of hear stuff that showing why and where Dr. Adrienne Hale went. And it says by the time Trisha reaches the final cassette, the one that reveals the entire and horrifying story, it'll be too late, which is very intriguing. The plot of this seems right up my alley. And then the last three on this list, I didn't really have a category to put them in, but still excited to read them nonetheless. The 23rd book on my 25 books I want to read in 2025 is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagira. I've also seen this all over TikTok, and I know everyone says it's like really sad, but I feel like I just need to read it because I've heard, like, even though it's really sad, I've heard such good things about it. It's about 4 college classmates that moved to New York in search of fame and fortune. I think it just follows their friendships and the relationships to each other and how they're held together, it says, by their devotion to the brilliant and enigmatic Jude, a man scarred by unspeakable childhood trauma. It's a hymn to brotherly bonds and a masterful depiction of love in the 21st century. It's a stunning novel about the families we are born into and the ones we make for ourselves. And I know this book is going to destroy me, so it might be left for a little later in 2025 because I don't want to start off 2025 sad. It's like I want to be happy this year. And the 24th book on my list is A Man Called Ave by Frederick Bachman. I've heard such good things about Frederick Bachman's writing. I know Sarah Caroli has raved about him, and I saw there's a Netflix movie, It's a Man Called Otto. I think that's like the Americanized version of this book, but I loved that movie, sobbed, so I have to read the book. It's about a grumpy old man named Ov, and he kind of just is by himself because he thinks everyone else is an idiot. And then this young couple moves in with their 2 daughters and kind of throw Ov's life for a loop. It's a very uplifting story if it's anything like the movie, so I'm really excited to read it. And the last book on my 25 books I want to read in 2025 is Remarkably Bright Creatures. I've had this on my list for so long and I've heard it's such an incredible story, so I just need to read it. It's about Tova Sullivan. After her husband died, she began working at an aquarium to try and keep busy because it helps her with her grief, and her 18-year-old son vanished on a boat over 30 years ago as well, and she becomes acquainted with an octopus, and I think this is just about friendship, and it says a hope that traces a widow's unlikely connection with a giant Pacific octopus. I've heard amazing things about this book and I've always wanted to read it, so I'm very excited to get to it this year. Those are all the books that have already come out that I want to read, but I thought I would add some of the new releases that I'm so excited for because we have so many new books coming out this year that are amazing, and they're definitely going to be on my TBR. So I thought I would tell you the 5 books that I'm very excited to read this year. The first new release I'm so excited for is the Emily Henry Great Big Beautiful Life. It comes out April 22nd. Most of her books come out like the day before my birthday, and if that doesn't show you that that she's meant to be my favorite author, I don't know what does. This book is about Alice and Hayden, and they're competing to write the biography of a woman who hasn't been seen in like a long time. This lady, Margaret, the one they're gonna write the biography about, invites them both over to her house for a month-long trial period to see which one of them will get to write her biography. It says, but the problem is Margaret is only giving each of them pieces of her story, pieces they can't swap to put together because of an ironclad NDA, and an inconvenient yearning pulses them every time they're in the same room. Emily Henry just knows how to write men, and I find myself relating to every single female main character she's written in one way or another, so I'm so excited for this book. I will drop everything I'm doing to read this book. The next new release I'm so excited for is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This book is about Samantha and Xavier. Xavier is described as a gorgeous veterinarian giving Greek god vibes, and him and Samantha go on one incredible and seemingly endless date, possibly the best in living history. Samantha is forced to admit the truth that her family is in crisis and any kind of relationship would be impossible, and she begs Xavier to forget her, and it says only no amount of distance or time is nearly enough to forget that something is between them, and the only thing better than one single perfect memory is to make a life and even a love worth remembering. And I know Abby Jimenez knows how to write men. so this is going to be soul crushing. I'm so excited. The next new release I'm excited for is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. I loved The 7-Year Slip. That's probably one of my top books ever. This book is about Joni Lark. She is a songwriter and she returns to her hometown because she's feeling empty, and when she gets to her hometown, her best friend is ignoring her, her mother's memory is fading, and the music venue that her family owns is shutting down. She's trying to write music and she's kind of struggling, but then she hears a melody in her head with a voice. She's like, where is this voice? Like, it's addicting, and it ends up belonging to a musician who has just also gotten into town. And it says when they meet, he's kind of like nothing like she would expect, and their plan is to finish the song haunting them both, break their connection, and hope they don't risk their hearts in the process. Very intriguing. The next new release I'm excited to read in 2025 is the third book in the Butcher and Blackbird's trilogy. It's Scythe and Sparrow, and this is Finn's book, and it is circus motorcycle performer Rose meets lonely small town Dr. Finn after a night of murderous adventure goes awry. I still need to read Leather and Lark, so I need to read that first, and then I will read this book because Butcher and Blackbird, oh my god, obsessed with that book. Another book, I'm so excited. Carly Fortune is coming out with a new book this year. It's about Alice and Charlie. Alice spent one summer at her grandma's cottage, and now she's a photographer, and then her grandma breaks her hip and she has to go spend the summer there, and that's where she sees Charlie. And when he was 19, she had taken his photo from afar. Now he's all grown up and he makes Nan laugh, and Alice long to be 17 again, and I feel like they'll, you know, get together. I love Carly Fortune books. I've read all her books and I love them all. They're the perfect summer read. I'm excited to read this summer. Those are the 25 books I'm most excited to read in 2025, plus some anticipated new releases. I hope you guys enjoyed. My goal in 2025 is to be back to YouTube. I say that every time, but it's true this time. My camera is gonna die, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Let me know what some of your anticipated reads of 2025 are. Bye guys.